Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We are presented by CLNS Media. Oh boy. Chris Stone is with me. We are, I think, an hour out from the NBA draft ending, right, Chris?
That sounds about right.
And we're just going to talk. We're going to see where it goes, basically. The NBA draft happened. DeAndre Ayton went first overall. Luka Doncic fell to third because reasons. Those reasons involve a chain-smoking 7-foot Serbian. Trae Young ends up going fifth because really the team that is selecting fifth somehow ended up with Luka Doncic. Just the dumbest stuff in the world that could possibly have happened tonight. Michael Porter fell to 14. I guess that would be a pretty large story. What else happened, Chris, that got your attention before we really go into depth?
That's a good question. Anthony Simons goes 24. That was interesting. Omari Spellman going 30 was interesting.
By interesting, you mean bad.
Bad, yes, correct. But totally great. Woj's use of the thesaurus. Just
oh my God.
Really on fire all night. Probably the best thing about the draft. You can't disclose the picks, but you can certainly say someone is lasered in on. That had me cracking up all night.
No. We must protect Woj at all costs after tonight because absolute Hall of Fame performance. Woj is going to the Hall of Fame anyway, but just an absolutely unbelievable night for Woj. We got the Lakers unlikely to resist Mo Wagner. Portland has a laser on Anthony Simons. Utah Jazz have no plans to pass on Grayson Allen. Just a legend. Just an absolute legend.
My favorite thing about this is that at some point, right, Shams is tweeting out all of the picks too. And at some point, Shams then starts tweeting similarly to Woj. It starts tweeting things like focusing on. And then goes back to selecting. But there was at least one clear Woj tweeted there that got me pretty good.
Yeah. Denver has been seriously considering Michael Porter Jr. I think that might have been the only real one of the night where he was just being straight up Denver actually had a choice to make there.
Well, and I love they would put him on TV for some of this too, and you couldn't say I know they're selecting him. He'd be like, yeah, but during their search they've been focusing on this person. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, okay.
Yeah, Woj, God love him.
Yeah, just an excellent performance.
Unbelievable human being. Let's talk about the draft and talk about, I guess, DeAndre Ayton at number 1. Are you a fan of that? I don't remember.
No, not particularly. I certainly would have taken Luka Doncic number 1. I understand Phoenix's decision to take Ayton number 1. I certainly understand it from a productivity perspective. I have questions about how Ayton will contribute to winning in the long term, just given kind of the attributes that have been involved historically for centers who contributed to winning in terms of things like RPM. But I understand the pick. I get it. I know that it was made a while ago, or it seems to have been made a while ago. So I understand it. It's not my favorite. And really the reason that I would be down on that pick is just the value that I place on Doncic in particular, and then kind of secondarily to that, Jaren Jackson. But I understand it.
Yeah, and look, I'm someone who had DeAndre Ayton at number 1. I think he is very good at basketball. I think that the biggest thing for me is that I trust the defense to come along eventually. If you don't think the defense is going to come along, then I totally understand why you are a little bit further down on DeAndre Ayton as a prospect, but he's just so athletic and he's so skilled and just a freak. I think it's going to be figured out at some point.
Yeah, certainly, hopefully. I think his perimeter defense is probably better than most people think it is. I really question the rim protection. I have a hard time thinking that's something that's going to come along in due time, and that's probably where my evaluation of him differs the most from some of the people who are higher on him. But, I understand the pick. I get it. I get the vision that they have for what he will do there. It's not the choice that I would have made, but I'm also not paid to make those choices, and so I get it.
Yeah. Number 2. Oh, boy.
The man who's going to play a 3, 4, or 5 for the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, my God. Vladi. Danny LaRue, good friend of the program, host of the Dunked On podcast with Nate Duncan, G-chatted me that Jason Jones tweet, and I just had no words. Like, what are you doing?
It's not good.
He can play small forward. He can play 3, 4, and 5. Please, Dave Yeager, play Marvin Bagley at the 5. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't. If you try and play him at the 3, it is not going to end well. He's very, very, very good at the 5. He is probably not good at the 3.
No, certainly not. And I'm relatively high on Bagley, so, like, this pick isn't, again, as egregious to me as it might be to other people, absent the fact that I think Doncic and Jaren Jackson are just, like, quite a bit better prospects. But I think Bagley's a really good player. And I'll say this, I think Bagley probably, as much as anybody didn't get to show the totality of his game at Duke either, I think that during the pre-draft process, a lot of people gave a lot of credence to Wendell Carter for not being able to show everything that he could show at Duke. And based on some of the things I saw of Bagley in high school, I think that there is more to his game than exists. Now, I'm not entirely sure that he will be in a development environment in which that will flourish in Sacramento. But I think that there's an opportunity for him to surprise some people with some of the things that he does.
You know what? I will sort of go to bat for Sacramento. Not 100%, but just sort of. The organization over the last year has been better, especially when it comes to development and to focusing in on locker room and to on the locker room, not just locker room, and focusing in on the just interpersonal relationships of the players and making sure that everything is okay from that regard. So
yeah,
that part is good. He's also going to go play for a coach in Dave Yeager, who started George Hill for a while this year and started Zach Randolph for a while this year. Has a propensity to sit rookies, especially if they don't play defense. DeAndre Ayton's not a good defender yet. Like, DeAndre Ayton can say he's a good defender. For whatever reason, he thinks that's a good idea. We can just kind of call it what it is. It's fine. He's not. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has the tools. Like, he's 6'11" and super freaky lateral quick. Not a good defender. And, you know, I think that you had Marvin Bagley at 4, right, on your board?
I had him 3.
You had him 3? So I had him number 3 as well, and I think I'm actually further down on this pick than you are. To not take Luka Doncic here is kind of crazy to me.
Sure.
Not the decision that I would have made if I was Vlade Divac. Luka, like, part of the things that they kept saying, I know that Carmichael Dave, the radio guy out in Sacramento, said that part of the reason is they didn't want to take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. I mean, like, Luka Doncic plays with point guards. Like, he plays with Goran Dragic, plays with Facundo Campazzo. Like, this is not a normal... This is like, he's not just a true point guard. You play him with point guards. You let him be a, you know, kind of combination ball handler with that point guard, and I don't understand. I really don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bigger problem, right, than just the general nature of the pick, which is, you know, look, I think Doncic is a significantly better prospect than Bagley. Like, Doncic a lot more than Ayton. So, like, from an absolute value perspective, like, I don't think it's particularly close in terms of talent. the real struggle, like you just said, is the reasoning that goes into making that decision.
You called Marvin Bagley a 3.
Well, you called Marvin Bagley a 3. You said that you don't want to take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. You, don't have enough. Like, I guess, I don't know. This is accusatory, and I don't know the answer to this question, but it seems as though you don't have enough detail on your Doncic scouting report to know that he's succeeded in previous situations in which he's played next to point guards. And the logic behind the decision for taking Bagley doesn't appear to be sound in terms of its relationship to Doncic. If your answer is just we think Marvin Bagley's really good, we don't think he got to show everything he could show at Duke, we think that he has a great chemistry potentially with De'Aaron Fox or whatever, your reasoning becomes more acceptable. But when you factor in some of those other things that are said, I think it starts to raise questions about just the player evaluations that they went through to come to that decision.
100% agree. Honestly, I think Marvin Bagley is a really good prospect. I think that he is going to fit really well as a rim runner with De'Aaron Fox in pick and rolls. De'Aaron Fox, Marvin Bagley, probably the most athletic pick and roll combination in the league now, right?
Yeah, probably. I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
Those two dudes can both sky and fly and move very quickly. But, this team's going to be very fun. But Luka Doncic, none of the reasons you gave for why you didn't pick Luka Doncic actually are sensible. And that's a problem. Again, don't denigrate Marvin Bagley. He's a very good prospect who I think probably is going to make an all-star game out of Sacramento. But you passed on a damn good player who is proven and who just really is kind of a better prospect in all senses of the word.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to kind of move on. Let's move on to the trade that happened that got Luka Doncic to Dallas. I love the fact that Luka Doncic ended up in Dallas. I'm so excited. I love the fact that we're going to get to see Rick Carlisle coaching Luka Doncic. I love the fact that we're going to get to see I love the fact that a team that has invested in Europe, in European scouting, as much as Dallas has, and as much as almost any team in the league has over the last 2 decades, gets to pick Luka Doncic. I love that there is karma there. I love that there is just them being rewarded for all of their hard work over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a really intriguing fit, and it's interesting, I suppose, to juxtapose the decision by the Kings to not take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands, but Dallas's willingness to pair Doncic with Dennis Smith Jr.
Yes,
perhaps suggests some things about the way that those organizations think about basketball and team building going forward. Part of the reason that I was so high on Doncic throughout the process is that I think that he just does so much to contribute to winning for your team, whether he's scoring 20 points a game or not. And so fitting him into that process, to me, I think it is terrific and sets Dallas up for the future really well. I also love the fact that Luka's going to wear number 77.
Yeah, sure. Whatever, Luka.
Pretty in.
Do we think that Atlanta got enough to make this decision? Because Atlanta, for what it's worth, for people who don't have the behind-the-scenes info, Atlanta has been very high on Trae Young, the entire process. They have loved Trae Young. How much of it is Travis Schlenk seeing new Stephen Curry coming from Golden State, coming out of Oklahoma now? I don't know. But yeah, they've been high on him the whole process. This is something I've heard for a while now. And if you're that high on a guy, okay, I get the move, but I'm not that high on Trae Young to where I think that the value matches up here.
Yeah, I'm higher than you are on Trae Young, and I still probably don't think that the value matches up here. I think Trae can be a really great player. I think that he can be one of the best offensive players in the league at his ceiling. The defense is obviously a question mark, and just kind of how bad that defense could be or will be is ultimately going to determine a lot of his value. But, kind of like we said with Marvin Bagley versus Doncic, Doncic is just such a better prospect that it would be tough to make up that value in a trade, I think.
Yeah, unless you're getting this extra first-round pick and also getting off of the Kent Bazemore money. Like, I think that would have to be the only way to do it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they got a first-round pick, that's like top 5 protected or something like that?
Yeah, like that's just not... In next year's draft, which you and I talked about earlier, I mean, like, in next year's draft...
Man, it's not good.
That's just not a valuable pick.
Yeah, like, if you get a top 5 pick even if you get the best version of that pick in next year's draft, so you get, like, pick number 6, right? Like, right now, it's probably, like, Quentin Grimes or Romeo Langford, and, like, that's not worth it.
Yeah, like, I even like Romeo Langford. I think he's good.
Me too. Both of those players are totally fine. Luka Doncic is just really, really good. And I think that in any trade discussion that would have happened with Luka, we probably would have ultimately come back to Luka Doncic is really, really good. There's a high probability chance that he's going to be a really great NBA player. And even as someone who likes Trae Young a ton, it's kind of a difficult decision to understand because Luka is just that much better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Strange decision, I would say, more than anything. Number 6 ends up being Mohamed Bamba, and I just want to just go on my little spiel here real quick about John Hammond. John Hammond is a legend. I swear to God, I think he's trolling us with this. John Hammond takes Mohamed Bamba, 6'11.25", I believe, without shoes on, 7'10" wingspan. He takes Justin Jackson. I think he's like 6'6", 2'5", with a 7'3" wingspan. Takes Melvin Frazier, who is 6'4", 2'5", maybe 6'5.5" or 6'4.5", 7'2" wingspan. Combined wingspan of plus 28 inches for John Hammond with 3 players in this draft. It is the most John Hammond draft of any draft. If you guys don't know, John Hammond is the former general manager of the Milwaukee Bucks, who moved to Orlando before last year's draft. Just a legend. An absolute legend of length.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, I guess. One of the things that popped up in this draft was just like how clearly a couple of teams identified the things that they valued and then selected within that framework. So Orlando fits that obviously in terms of length and positional size, and I think Atlanta fits that in terms of positional shooting skill in taking Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, and Omari Spellman. And so I kind of thought not only that Orlando was interesting in that sense, but that Atlanta was interesting in that sense because the front office has clearly identified the skill that they care about most, found the prospects who fit that. And in Orlando's case, they benefited, right, from Trae Young going in the top 5 and Mohamed Bamba falling to them to get that. But they at least, have a clear vision for what they think is valuable, how that can contribute to their team in the future. And they selected prospects with those traits. And I think that anytime a front office has that clear of a vision, it's a real positive in terms of future development.
Yes, I tend to agree with that. But will Orlando score 30 points next season?
No, probably not. But, like, if the other team scores 25, you still win.
It's true. They're going to be really fun to watch next year if you enjoy just limbs everywhere. Because they still have Jonathan Simmons. They still have Jonathan Isaac, obviously. Aaron Gordon, not super long, but super fun, super athletic. Maybe he comes back. Interesting team. And we're going to talk about the shooting thing with Atlanta a little bit later on because I do find it very interesting as well. Memphis takes Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson decides, okay with the medicals, going to Memphis. I think this is a totally great pick.
Great pick. I love that Jaren Jackson reportedly was totally not interested in Memphis, goes to Memphis, and then gives an interview where he's like, y'all are getting a rib eater, and I'm listening to Memphis rap music all night. And now he's just totally in. I'm very excited. I saw that I believe Chris Wallace said that he thought Jackson could be the best rim protector that the franchise has had and the best overall defender that the franchise has had. There was some, I think, anger at that tweet given Tony Allen and Marc Gasol. And I honestly don't think it's an unreasonable statement because Jaren Jackson is a really, really good defender who is only 18 years old and has a ton of defensive upside.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his upside is Defensive Player of the Year, much like Marc Gasol ended up winning one year. So, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think it's really all that wild to say that. They also take Javon Carter, too, which is really fun. They took, like, the best perimeter defender as well as the best, like, 4 or 5 defender in the draft.
Yeah. Really like, just kind of a clear strategy of, like, we're going to find some defenders and lock it up and make that happen. And I believe Chris Wallace is from West Virginia, so there's some connection there to Javon Carter.
Yeah, no, I had Javon Carter mocked there at 32.
I also had Javon Carter mocked there at 32.
that was a very obvious one.
Yep.
Wendell Carter at number 7. I have mixed thoughts on this. Carter is a really, really good fit with Fred Hoiberg offensively. I am concerned defensively to pair him with Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, I think I probably would have been concerned defensively with Carter just about wherever he ended up, but obviously pairing him in a front court situation with Lauri Markkanen magnifies those concerns, particularly when you watch the types of teams that have been successful in the playoffs. I mean, potentially you get to the point where Markkanen and Carter can act as switch defenders in every situation, and it just doesn't matter quite as much. But I think that they're going to be a super fun offensive team. I kind of had a thought, I'll bounce it off of you, which is that I don't know how much you remember of George Niang doing offensive things at Iowa State, but I'm curious if Wendell Carter can ever get to the point to do some of those things in Hoiberg's system. And I kind of think that, like, he has the skill set to do it in kind of some DHO situations, handle the ball a little bit, nice passer, etc. And I think that could become a blueprint for some of the sets that they run with him.
It'll definitely be some of the sets. Like, they'll pick and choose some sets from Niang. I really like the idea of some of the DHO stuff that you mentioned, but I don't think he can handle the ball quite like George.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's, I think, the biggest
or
problem.
pass, because George is a freaky passer for a kid that's like 6'8", I guess.
Yeah, he was so good.
Yeah, he was awesome in college. Colin Sexton at number 8. You're probably not a fan?
Yeah, not in here. Turns out. A lot of good players on the board here. I don't think that if LeBron comes back, Colin Sexton is an effective player next to him, just given the shooting struggles. And I guess if you want to turn the team over to Sexton in the instance that LeBron leaves, that's probably a way for him to develop. But I don't know that I trust him to be someone who can be a primary initiator on a good team.
I think that's probably fair. Some of that is fair. What I will say is this Cavs team this year really needed someone that could take pressure off LeBron.
Sure.
Just in terms of creation. They really also needed someone who can create plays when LeBron goes to the bench. I am really excited to see Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson together on the same floor. They might fight over the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be a disaster.
If they ever play together on the same floor, it's going to be a disaster. I'm okay with this pick, but I generally am higher on Sexton than you are, than a lot of people are. Just because there have been few personalities in just like people that I've been more convinced of. I just kind of think that his mentality, he's going to figure out how to be effective.
Yeah, I certainly hope that becomes the case. Like, I hope he is someone who proves me wrong, because I think he is a really fun basketball player and a very enjoyable person to watch, personality to watch. So I hope that that's correct. It's just that I have some hesitations about whether or not it will be. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Yeah. Kevin Knox at number 9.
I'm not kidding. When this pick came across the Twitter timeline, I literally just thought of the shrug emoji. Like, I guess, I mean, I don't know. I'm not particularly high on Knox. Youth, athleticism, some shooting is really interesting. I'm not sure what the long-term upside there is. He feels like a complementary piece who can play some power forward next to Kristaps Porzingis in their best lineups, but I don't know. I'm just like not that interested in Kevin Knox as a prospect, I guess. And so it didn't excite me one way or the other.
I like the complementary factor with Porzingis. I think that those two could work really, really well together. I probably would have taken Mikal Bridges or Miles Bridges, kind of is what it is. But I'm okay with this. Like if I was giving this pick a grade, solid B. Just like right down the middle. I think it's a double. Or I guess in the gap in that case. But the next thing we need to talk about is this weird 76ers Suns trade.
Yep.
Will say was a little bit fucked up that the Sixers sent Mikal Bridges out to the press conference, and like midway through the press conference, he was traded.
Oh man, just like real brutal for Mikal, I feel like, and for his mom.
Yeah,
like his mom works
as
for
like
the
a Philadelphia
for
native.
The Sixers.
Yeah,
she was amped. Like you could tell on TV, she was so pumped that he was going to play for the Sixers, and then just like soul-crushing news, he's moving to Phoenix. Like just brutal. I love what Brett Brown had to say about the deal afterwards. Like, I totally understand where Philadelphia is coming from. I think that they probably made the right play in this instance.
Yep.
But it's just, like, really brutal for Mikal Bridges to, grow up in Philadelphia, finally get the opportunity to play for the hometown franchise. I think he was a really good fit for that roster in terms of what they needed. But to get sent out like that, I thought was really rough. Like, ideally you make that trade before you make that pick so that he knows he's not staying there. I don't think that the trade necessarily was on the table at that time, but the way that it happened was pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, if you think there's even an inkling that Mikal Bridges is going to be traded, you probably need to, because like I'm sure the NBA handles the press conferences for this stuff.
Right.
You probably need to go to the NBA and be like, hey, can we not send him out? Can we just like wait until after this Suns pick? And if we need to wait, we need to wait. But like, let's just hold up.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's right.
In general, I agree with you. I think it was the right move. I think that the 76ers probably got the slightly better end of the deal. And that comes as someone, I think I probably have Zaire Smith lower than you do on your board.
Yeah, probably quite a lot lower.
Because what, you have him like probably 10th or something?
I had him 8.
Yeah, like 8. I have him 17. And like I had Mikal Bridges 12. Depending on what the protections are on this Miami pick, because I don't think we know for sure that it's unprotected yet, right?
I agree.
So depending on what the protections are on this 2021 Miami pick, it could be much more valuable than the difference, or it could just be like slightly more valuable. But I do think at the end of the day, the Sixers probably got the better end.
I think so too, and I think from the perspective that they were operating under, like I said, I really liked what Brett Brown had to say at the press conference. He said we're star hunting because we know that that's the thing that wins championships. And I think that if your concern is upside, then the contest between Mikal and Zaire is not one. It's one that's not close. Zaire's potential upside based on his IQ indicators and his athleticism suggests a significantly higher potential upside, even if it's a lower probability one, than the one that exists for Mikal. I think we know what Mikal is, and Philadelphia fans who I think were upset with the trade said Mikal is a prospect who can help us win now, and we are built to win now. And in reality, I think Philadelphia said, we may have exceeded our expectations for this year and are still building towards the long view, and Zaire fits into that long view, as does this draft pick. And I think, again, having that view for your franchise from the front office, especially one that just recently went through significant turnover, is a really positive thing.
And then looking at it from Phoenix's perspective, it makes sense that they're willing to sell the 2021 pick to get a player that is ready to win now, as opposed to taking a player that they need to wait on a little bit. Because let's just be kind of honest, Ryan McDonough probably needs to show a pretty solid increase in wins this year.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think Mikal is a nice prospect for them to add because, they have Devin Booker on the perimeter. He's obviously not a particularly good defender. I think being able to insulate him a little bit with Mikal and Josh Jackson is a nice fit. And that will kind of relieve some of that defensive pressure that exists on Devin Booker, hopefully. Mikal should be able, I think, to contribute right away. He's not going to be a one-on-one defensive stopper, but he should be an excellent team defender, somebody who can knock down shots. Won't have to handle the ball there. They can leave that to Booker and Jackson and whoever they sign as their point guard. And so I think that fit is totally fine. It's just that, the views for these franchises are different. And like you said, Phoenix, interestingly, is probably more in win now mode than Philadelphia is, although their, outcomes of win now are different.
Yeah. I also like the fact that Phoenix, being 30th in offense and 30th in defense last year, they got a guy who can help them on both sides of that spectrum.
Absolutely.
Like, pretty quickly. Like, I think that will really help them. Number 11 and number 12 were traded for each other, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Oh, I also want to bring up on the Philly side with Zaire Smith. Zaire Smith, like, you heard Philadelphia be connected with Zaire basically over the last, week and a half, really. They were seriously connected with Zaire. I always assumed it would be a move up from 26, not a move down from 10, but I'm not surprised that he ends up there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this is another example of that kind of, because I think that what might have happened, and it's kind of funny because I think that this is all interconnected, the Suns were said to be very high on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as well.
Correct.
And I would bet the reason that the Clippers moved up from 12 to 11 is that the Hornets thought there was a good chance they were going to make a move with Phoenix, select Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Phoenix, and then move him.
Yeah, that would make sense, I think, logically, for the way that it played out. It is certainly odd that the Clippers traded up effectively one spot to take him. So clearly there was some threat to him being off the board. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Phoenix was going to move up for him. That's my guess on it, at least. Sure. Number 12, Miles Bridges. So Charlotte essentially got 2 extra second-round picks and got Miles Bridges, who I have at number 8 on my board, at number 12. Charlotte did really well tonight, I thought.
Yeah, I thought Charlotte did great in this deal. Miles Bridges is a prospect. I have him 7 on my board. You have him 8. I think a really useful player, someone who fits in well there, will provide them some shooting, will provide them some defense, can shoot off of movement a decent amount. I think he's a better prospect than Gilgeous-Alexander is, and they got the added bonus of some second-round picks. So certainly nothing to complain about from their end on that deal.
Yeah. Jerome Robinson, 13.
Yeah, sure, I guess. I don't know. I'm not particularly high on Jerome Robinson as a prospect. I think that there are a lot of defensive concerns and questions about ways in which he adds value beyond his scoring. I understand that NBA teams appear to be higher on him than I was because of that scoring and the efficiency that comes with it. I think 13 is probably a little high. I don't know where the teams kind of in between had him at, but I would have suspected you could have at least traded down a couple of spots if the deal existed to select him. I know he was linked to the Bucks a decent bit, so maybe you trade down one of the 3 spots and take him there and try to get a little bit of extra value. But, if you like the guy, I guess you select him.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I had him 15 spots lower on my board. I was not a huge fan of this pick.
Me too.
Having said that, again, a lot of NBA teams really, really like him. And teams that I think are smart really like him and think that he is, the name that I've heard is CJ McCollum. They think he can be that good. And I don't agree. I think he's going to be a defensive liability and provide slightly less offense. Maybe not even slightly, maybe 75% of the offense that CJ can. That's a big drop-off.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I also had him 15 spots lower. I think I had him 28. Just not really, probably one of the bigger reaches in the draft for me, I think.
Yeah. Michael Porter at number 14, I think, is a big one. We should spend some time on this. So,
sure.
Michael Porter, I moved him to 12 on my last mock draft. I was pretty worried. I got a call this morning where someone who works for the NBA told me they thought he would even fall to 15, 16.
Yeah.
Or no. He said 14, 15. I think is the number, because Denver and Washington were both saying that they would take him. I didn't really believe it at the time that he would get down there. I thought 12 was the floor, but
yeah,
it happened. It really happened. I can't believe it.
Well, Matt Moore just tweeted that based on his read of the situation with Denver, he does not expect Michael Porter Jr. to play this year. So that might be suggestive of some of the problems that exist here. I mean, truthfully, there's no real way to evaluate this selection without knowing the details of the medical reports that went into it. And clearly enough teams were scared off by those medical reports to have him drop this far. And I don't think that that's solely based on any of the, I don't think the drop has as much to do with some of the character concerns that were discussed or the basketball concerns that were discussed. I think that it is largely a medical question and, one that we don't have a great answer on because we don't have full access to the medical reports.
Yeah. In general, on this pick, I think the reward outweighs the risk. I am totally fine with Denver taking Michael Porter at 14. You are Denver. You have a young core of Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Nikola Jokic. You have Paul Millsap. You have some other really interesting young pieces. You're going to be good going forward into the future. Like, we feel good about Denver making the playoffs for, the next 5 years, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But the way that they're going to make that next step, the way they're going to make that leap, is star hunting, exactly what you talked about with Philadelphia. And Michael Porter represented the best chance to do that, I think. So I'm okay with it. I even don't really like the fit for Porter on this team because this is an all-offense team that really needs defense. And Michael Porter is not a good defender yet. He is a 3-level scorer. I don't even know if his offensive game totally fits with this because Jamal Murray's not a great distributor point guard. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is an incredible distributor, but Gary Harris, not a crazy distributor. I can see a situation where the ball gets a little sticky with this team. I just don't care. I think you figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are correct that this is a totally fine position for him to fall to. Obviously, we're talking about a situation where he went after Jerome Robinson, and that to me is just crazy.
Crazy.
It's nuts. Michael Porter Jr. can be a really good basketball player, and I think he can, like you said, solve those issues that exist for Denver, the ones that we've identified as potential problems there. But at the same time, obviously, he went this low for a reason, and hopefully that reason doesn't come to fruition, and the back injury is fine, and he's totally good to play, and everything is okay. But I think you're right that at some point the expected value equation changes. And in this instance, changes in some part because of the team that's making the pick, and like you said, needs to find some of those complementary star pieces who can support the players that they already have. And so I don't really have any problem with the pick. I just think it's really difficult to judge the value of the pick or the quality of the pick without knowing kind of what those medical reports say.
Yeah, no, I think that is fair. Generally, I'm okay with it. I'm just okay with it. I think it's a smart move. Troy Brown goes number 15. That was a surprise to me.
I agree. Also a surprise to me.
And having talked to a few people around the league and just kind of in situations around basketball, Washington kind of threw everyone for a loop on this a little bit. He worked out there and was really strong in the workout from what I was told. But they told a lot of people that they really liked them, put it that way.
Right. Yeah. And there were, they brought Robert Williams in, I think, late this week, if I remember that correctly. And truthfully, just from a logic perspective, I don't know that I love the fit there. I think that, that team thrives when it has shooting and spacing, and that's obviously the place where Troy Brown is weakest. And if you're kind of bringing him in to help facilitate some offense, kind of like they did with Evan Turner in Portland, I just don't think that's going to work. And so, I would be interested to hear what they view Troy Brown's role as and what they view as long-term upside in.
So everything's going to come down to the jump shot with him, just straight up. He needs to be able to shoot. Otherwise, this pick probably will not work out. But I like the idea of them getting a guy who can run a secondary break with John Wall and let Bradley Beal not have to worry about doing it.
That makes sense to me.
Or Otto Porter not have to worry about doing it. You can run Troy Brown and John Wall in the secondary break and just have Otto Porter and Bradley Beal run to opposite sides of the court, run to the opposite corners, and get open threes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, like that appeals to me, but needs to be able to shoot it because otherwise in the half court, teams are going to be able to collapse down on John Wall.
Right.
So that's a problem. Number 17, because we already talked about number 16, Dante DiVincenzo. I like this. I think that big reason the Bucks struggled against the Celtics is that they didn't have anyone other than Giannis and Chris Middleton to create anything. And Dante, you know what? That dude is fearless. He's a shot maker. He can actually kind of do that stuff.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, it's a positive. I'm just probably not as high on the Big Ragu as other people are.
This is a Michael Jordan of Delaware podcast.
The Michael Jordan of Delaware might be the best nickname that exists in sports. It's so good.
Just because Jay Wright was like fucking with him when he said it.
No, it was his high school coach.
I thought it was Jay Wright.
No. His high school coach is where that nickname comes from. And I assume that Jay Wright said it as a mocking way, but it originated, I believe, from his high school coach.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
So it's so good. I think that you're right. He fits a piece of the puzzle for them that they really need in terms of shot creation. I'm just not super high on him as a prospect in terms of his ability to do other things other than create those shots. And there's value in that shot creation, and there's value in his ability to knock down shots, off the ball as well. But he's just not, to me, a particularly high upside guy. I kind of think that he tops out as like a guy who comes off the bench and gets you buckets, or maybe starts as like a fourth or fifth starter. And I guess that's fine, but there were some other prospects on the board I liked a little better.
I would imagine you liked Lonnie Walker better.
I do like Lonnie Walker better.
Lonnie Walker goes 18 to San Antonio. He was a situation where, obviously the reports came out that it was a medical checks situation. He had surgery on the torn meniscus in the preseason.
Right.
So not sure I can say it's like a total surprise that this happened. It's a steal. It's a steal for San Antonio. Yeah. You look at their last 3 first-rounders, DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker. They all do very different things. They're all very complimentary of each other. I love that future backcourt for them, given the fact that all of them went like 18 or later.
Yeah, I think that they did really well here. I think Walker's another prospect who probably didn't show the full array of his skills this season, partially because of the environment that he was playing in, and then partially just because I think that he never really got, that injury happened to him at the worst time in the preseason when you're kind of getting your bearings to play college basketball, and that just means he was on a weird curve for getting into full speed games and put him in a difficult spot. I got to see him live here in DC at one point, and he did some things that were incredibly impressive during the game, but you could just kind of tell there was more to him as a prospect that he didn't get to show. And so I think he ends up in a great developmental situation. I agree with you on his fit with that backcourt. Someone that I think will probably outplay what his initial projection was heading into the draft.
Kevin Huerter at number 19, and you bring up the idea earlier that the Hawks had a very clear vision for their picks, and we're just going to include Amari Spellman here at number 30. Trae Young and Kevin Huerter, you don't really even have to squint to see that Travis Schlenk could very easily see Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, his version of it with these 2 picks. And
absolutely,
the odds are high that those 2 are not going to be as good as Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But I think that what he's seeing is he comes from Golden State, where he sees up close the way shooting affects the game. And he is prioritizing, I think, the ability to space the floor.
I think that's exactly right. He's willing to take some risks on prospects who, at their ceiling outcomes, resemble the players that he had in Golden State, who he recognized as having tremendous effects on the game. I think obviously, anybody who sits down and watches these prospects recognizes that those comparisons are obviously unlikely, but at the same time, let's say you get a mini version of those things, you can obviously still develop some pretty effective players. I don't think it's crazy to suggest that like Kevin Huerter could become a Klay Thompson level shooter at some point. Like that's within his realm of outcomes. The place where he differs pretty significantly from Klay is his ability to play defense, and like that's just not value that you're going to get. But I think that in terms of offensive value, I think this is a great value pick for him at 19. He's clearly a three-point shot maker, can shoot it off of movement, can knock it down a little bit off the dribble, and there's a lot of value in that. It's just that, he's not the defender that the best version of him that you could imagine would be.
I am a big, big fan of Kevin Huerter at number 19. I think it's a great pick. Probably wouldn't have done the Trae Young pick, but, I get it. I think that it might end up fine. Oh boy, Omari Spellman.
He exists.
Yeah, Omari. That was not something I was anticipating happening, I would say. Omari Spellman goes number 30. He can shoot. He can kind of attack closeouts. I have no idea how he defends at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, if you watched him dominate Kansas in the Final Four, like, you probably locked into him as a first-round pick, I guess. Like, he destroyed Udoka Azubuike, which is not particularly surprising if anybody thought about how that game was going to go down. He looked great, but I think you're right. He's a land warrior on the defensive end. He's not somebody who moves his feet particularly well on the perimeter. It's going to be really hard to keep him on the floor in any action where someone targets him in a ball screen, and if that's the thing that's going to happen, I just don't know how valuable of a player you can be.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Josh Okogie at number 20. Grayson Allen at number... We should talk about Grayson, actually. Do we have anything to say about Okogie?
I mean, Thibodeau got something right, and I think he fits really well with things that they need.
Yep.
He's a defender who can knock down threes. That's great.
Grayson Allen. I like this pick. I had him 10 spots lower on my board, and I still think it's a really good pick.
I don't mind it at all. I think Grayson is probably a better player than most people think he is. I think he's well known, obviously, for tripping people and butt checks, but he's a really good shot creator.
Can we talk real quick about the fact that, like, NBA executives are just, like, hand-waving the, like, tripping shit? Like, Grayson Allen...
Misunderstood.
Grayson Allen was out here habitually tripping dudes. It is genuinely the most bizarre story of like 2 decades in college basketball, I think. Like it is, I can't remember.
It's insane.
Any story more bizarre than this.
Intentional and repetitive.
Yes, and NBA teams are just hand waving it. Like, look, I think Grayson Allen's actually a good kid. I think he's like a very nice kid. He has a good head on his shoulders and like has the best intentions. But, like, can we at least say, like, he makes bad decisions in the heat of the moment sometimes? Like, we need to, call it what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to factor it in that way. And the worst version of this, right, is not to just hand wave it and say he's misunderstood, but to spend it as a positive and say that he's just such a competitor that he just can't let the other team win, so he trips them. It's like, come on, man. Like, that's not a good thing.
No.
And not the way that you would want your players to be competitive, because in big-time situations that can be harmful to your team. But like you said, I think that this is a solid pickup. It provides the Jazz some things that they need. In terms of shot creation, I think Grayson is significantly underrated there. He can get his own shot. He can knock down threes off the dribble, and he can even pass it a little bit. And so I think he will fit in well in Utah. I think he will provide them something that they need. I think that they can alleviate some of the defensive concerns that he has with Rudy Gobert on the back line. I agree that I think it was a reach in terms of a talent perspective on my big board, but I also think that it's totally fine from a fit perspective, and that probably makes up enough of my concerns that I don't mind the pick at all.
Chandler Hutchison at number 22. The promise finally came true. I love this pick. I think Chandler Hutchison's awesome, and he's going to a situation where the Bulls have like no wing rotation right now. Unless, like, I guess we can call Zach LaVine a wing, so like Zach LaVine's there, but like really don't have much else on the wing, so he's going to be able to step in and hopefully play pretty quick.
Yeah, going to get playing time. Hopefully he's able to shoot it from NBA range consistently. That's like the big question mark I think that exists. Has really nice 3-point percentage numbers over the last few years, but not particularly great free throw numbers. So I think that there's still like a little bit of question of how that's going to translate. But like you said, he's going to get an opportunity to contribute quickly and play a role, and that's a nice situation for him. I think I certainly understand why, presuming that that's the team that offered him his promise. That was the team that reportedly offered him his promise way back even as far as the combine. I certainly understand why he took it because I think it's a good situation for him.
Marcus Thompson just tweeted, Woj's timeline is a textbook on how you talk when you think someone's wearing a wire.
I saw that tweet earlier tonight, and I thought, if you think someone's wearing a wire, just don't tell me.
It's unbelievable. One of my favorite picks in the draft is Aaron Holiday at 23. Just an incredible, not like even like just value, I think it's fine, but just an incredible fit, I think, with that organization.
Yeah, I'm not particularly high on Holiday as a general NBA player, but I did note in my write-up and my grades that I did think the fit was very interesting because of Holiday's noted ability to play off the ball and shoot away from it in ways that are valuable next to Victor Oladipo. I think that is correct, that it's a nice fit.
Yeah. Anthony Simons, Mo Wagner, Landry Shamet. Anything interesting to you there?
Not particularly. Simons is a reach. Wagner is a perfectly fine budget version of Lauri Markkanen. I like Landry Shamet as a player. Taking him at 26 seems like a reach.
Yeah, I actually think all three of these picks are reaches. Maybe they work out, maybe not. Simons, I have no idea what to make of. I've seen him a couple times, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an expert on him. I do think it was weird that the Trailblazers did not take a wing again.
Me too. But, it's a very odd fit.
Yeah. Wagner's fine. The Lakers continue to just, value high motor, high energy dudes that are great teammates. Sure. Right. I don't understand the Shamet pick at all because I think I'm a little bit lower on him than you are even.
Sure.
No. I'm going to sit here and imagine that Shake Milton went 26 and Landry Shamet went 54.
There you go. Good enough.
Genuinely is closer in both cases to where my board is. Let's talk about 27 and 28. These are two of the best picks in the entire draft. Robert Williams, I have yet to really understand why he fell this far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. My best explanation is it came out that he recognized that he needed to play harder and admitted as such. And, like, in self-awareness questions, you probably shouldn't admit that that's your flaw. And I think that it's understandable for NBA teams to be concerned about that and how willing he's going to be to actually create the best version of himself as a prospect. And that's the only reason that I can think of. I assume that there's probably more there that exists that I don't know about. But from a strictly talent perspective, it certainly looks like Boston walked away with one of the best values in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, and he actually fits a need for them too. He is a rim-running, rim-protecting center. He does something different than what their bigs do. Like Aaron Baines is a big bully, can kind of shoot a little bit now, and mostly just plays super physical. Al Horford is hyper-skilled. Robert Williams is a big old athletic rim runner who is going to swat the shit out of shots, and that is super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the concerns are character-based, and that's the reason that he fell this far, he couldn't have ended up in a better organization to hopefully address those things and put him in position to succeed. I don't think it's crazy to think that there are a decent number of worlds where Robert Williams is the best big in this draft.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know him super well, but I would be surprised if if it was anything like negative within his character, like in terms of like being a bad person, having spoken with him. And
I just mean like the self-improvement type stuff and needing to work harder and commit to the game.
Yeah. Jacob Evans at number 28. He does literally everything Golden State looks for.
Yeah, Golden State, I think it came out shortly after the finals, was planning to retool its roster, get younger, wanted to find a 3-and-D wing type player at pick number 28 who could contribute right away, and lo and behold, here is Jacob Evans from Cincinnati, who's a 3-and-D type player who can contribute right away, it turns out. And so I think this is a home run pick for them. I think that he's someone who will bring them value next year in an important role that they need. and someone who will hopefully inject a little bit of youth into their roster and push some of their other guys, or at least provide someone to mentor for those guys to give them some extra motivation throughout the regular season.
Yeah. John and Musa, do we care?
No, not really. Fun pick.
Good. I had him at like 22, 21 on my board. It's a good value.
Yep.
Reason he didn't go higher is because he doesn't want to stash. He wants to come over now. He's actually going to pay a buyout, from what I was told, to come over now. So, like, good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for him, man. Elliot Kobo was a surprise to me that he did not go higher in this draft.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the Suns got great value here. I think that in a number of worlds, I expected them to select a point guard at 16, whether that was Aaron Holiday, who they had to work out twice, or trading up to find one of those point guards like we discussed earlier. I think that they get a great pickup here in terms of their value and a position of need. Akobo is a great pull-up shooter, someone who can run pick and roll. I don't know that he necessarily is a guarantee to work out in the NBA, but I think at pick 31, that's a great value for Phoenix.
Yep. Just general other second-round standouts. Mitchell Robinson falls to 36. It's about where I had him.
Yeah, me too, but I think that that's a weird team fit.
No, not great. Not great.
Yeah, like, for several reasons. Like, one, I think Robinson needs a really supportive infrastructure, kind of just based on what we know about him as a person, and skipping out on Western Kentucky. And then just, like, not a ton of opportunities for playing time with Porzingis. Maybe, obviously, since Porzingis isn't going to come back for a little while, he gets some opportunities to get extra run in there. But just really not the franchise that I thought would take a risk on a prospect like him. We
mentioned Melvin Frazier earlier. 35. Mm-hmm. He goes to Orlando. I love this. It's a great steal of a pick. I think he is going to be unreal defensively. I think he's just going to be excellent.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a terrific defender. The question is, can he provide some semblance of offensive value, increasing free throw percentage over all 3 years in college, but really only a quality three-point shooter this year and not on a particularly high volume. And so I agree with you that I think he's going to be a great defender, but like we said, is Orlando going to score more than 30 points a game? I think that that's a question, and you just need to know or see if Frazier's going to continue to improve as a shooter over time. And if he does, he's a great pick here.
I liked what Detroit did, getting both Kyrie Thomas and Bruce Brown. I think that was very, very good. Added a lot of depth and defensive potential to a team that just needs it. They're going to be starting Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin. The best way to insulate those guys as interior defenders is to have terrific perimeter defenders. And Kyrie Thomas and Bruce Brown both are terrific perimeter defenders.
Yeah, if Avery Bradley doesn't work out, you just draft the guy who has the same measurements as him, right? And, like, that's how you proceed.
Yep, that's exactly right. DeAnthony Melton goes 46. That's a standout pick to me. Great analytics on his resume, goes to a great analytically inclined organization.
I mean, Melton is a prospect that I finished with at 13 on my board, which I recognize is higher than most places, but just had terrific freshman statistics. It's still only 20 years old. Someone who obviously struggles, I think, to score the ball efficiently, but hopefully will find some ways to contribute to that. And really someone who, as I rewatch some film on, really applies his athleticism as much as he can. You'll see him get up for dunks or get up and rebound, and I think landed in a really good spot in Houston for him to potentially develop. Just a super high IQ guy, someone that models really, really well. I'm excited to see what he does there, to be honest.
Keita Bates-Diop at 48 and Chimezie Metu at 49. I'm a big fan of both of these picks. Shake Milton at 54. Big fan there. Shout out Tom Welsh getting drafted, 58. Think he might be the nicest human being I've ever met in my life. George King at 59. I love that pick. That is an excellent pick to me. George King is a very, very good basketball player. 6'6", 7-foot wingspan. He is 24 years old already. I get that, but he can potentially be a role player down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. In terms of just like some second round stuff, I liked what Oklahoma City did with not a ton of options. Yeah. I think in this draft they end up with Devin Hall at 53, Kevin Hervey at 57, and then it came out after the draft that they traded for Hamidou Diallo. I think that they get some really interesting pieces that they can work in there. One of their big lacks is in two-way wings. Obviously, Hamidou Diallo is not that, but I think Hall and Hervey have the potential to offer some value there. So just given the selections that they had coming into the draft at 53 and 57, I thought that they did well with those selections.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's about all I got in terms of picks. Is there a team in general that stood out to you that did really, really well tonight?
I really like what the Rockets did. I think getting Melton at 46 is terrific value. I think they picked up Vince Edwards in a trade, and then they signed Gary Clark to a two-way deal. Clark's another prospect who is older but rates out terrific in models because of the stuff that he does defensively. I like what Houston did. Obviously like what Dallas did. And I think Philadelphia is the other team that I would highlight as a team that I like what they did.
I would point out Phoenix as well, even though they traded that extra pick to Philadelphia. Getting DeAndre Ayton is a really, really good pick. Mikal Bridges is going to be able to help them, and Elie Okobo, probably not their starting point guard next year, but could be their backup point guard next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they filled a ton of needs and did pretty well. I'm not sure that DeAndre Ayton's going to make it to next season after getting dunked on by Joel Embiid on Twitter, but I'm hopeful.
I love Joel Embiid so much. Just an incredible human being.
So good.
Just an incredible human being. I'm trying to think if anyone else stood out. I did like what Charlotte did in general. I mean, Devontae Graham, I think, does help them, at least. They did have to, kind of probably expend a little bit more than they needed to with that. I think they gave up 2 second-round picks. And I'm a big Arnoldus Kolboka guy. 6'10", can shoot the shit out of the ball. Actually has a shot, I think, to stick at the next level at some point. I think I do like what the Spurs did, getting both Lonnie Walker and Shemezi Metu. Chicago getting Chandler Hutchison and Wendell Carter. That's 2 of the top 20 guys on my board. They did well. Again, Philadelphia, like you mentioned, I'm just going to say that Landry Shamet went 54 and Shake Milton went 26 because that makes my life easier. And then Robert Williams and Jacob Evans as well. Again, 2 great picks there.
I would point out that I think I don't know that I love the drafts that exactly Atlanta and Orlando had, but kind of as I've harped on, I think it's nice to know those franchises have a particular direction in mind and they're willing to follow through on that and believe in it. And I think that having that consistency is super valuable in terms of team building, and you just have that vision that can guide the decisions you're going to make in the future.
Just going to bring up as well, in terms of my top 100 board, lowest ranked player to be selected was Tom Welsh, 91. Typically, the lowest ranked player is off of my board, so good job, NBA teams. Second, I want to point out that 54 of the 60 players that were picked were actually in my top 60, so good job, NBA teams. 42, the top 42 players were all picked. Very good again by NBA teams. Typically, there's a player that straggles in the 30s, right around there. Everyone but Kenrich Williams in my top 47 was taken. And Kenrich Williams, my guess is, given the fact that he's had knee surgeries in his past, may have gotten flagged, but I don't know that for sure. But it would make sense, right?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. He was the highest rated player on my board to not be selected. Someone who I think will bring value. I was surprised. I don't think it's come out that he's signed a deal yet, which I think is a little bit surprising just given what I think he could bring to an NBA team.
Alonzo Trier, 48. Trayvon Duval, 49. Brandon McCoy, 51. Riley Alkins, 55. Malik Newman, 58. The other guys in my top 60 to not be selected.
Yeah, Malik Newman signed a 2-way deal right after, I believe, with the Lakers.
Yep.
Did anybody have a worse year than Trayvon Duval? That dude came into the year as a projected lottery pick, or at least a projected top 20 pick, and goes to undrafted. The last guy that I can remember that happened to was Cliff Alexander.
Yeah.
That's just really brutal.
It's a bad year.
And I think, it shows you. I don't even know that I thought Trayvon Duval was that terrible this year. He had a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, averaged 2 steals per 40, but just the total lack of shooting and the lack of promise there really shows you, I think, how important that is for point guards.
Well, it's that, and I think that going to Duke really ended up pushing him off to the side.
That's true.
I mean, you are one of 5 players who are legitimate NBA picks. All 4 of his other starters ended up being taken in the top 37 of the NBA draft. And it's hard to stand out when that's the case, especially when you're the guy with the ball in your hands, you're turning the ball over a lot, and you can't shoot.
Yeah, his skill set certainly didn't fit well next to the rest of those players. I don't think either. Like, if anybody else had the ball, he was just not particularly useful.
Yep, totally agree. Any other random thoughts here, Chris?
No, I think that this draft was pretty interesting. I don't think it was quite as crazy as everybody thought it would be, which is kind of a downer. There weren't as many trades, I think, as people were hoping for. None of the superstars got traded.
0 current NBA players got traded tonight.
Yeah, kind of a bummer, I think, for the people who were rooting for chaos, but that made it easier on me in terms of doing draft grades and things like that, so I guess I can't be too mad about it. But I thought it was a pretty interesting draft nonetheless, and I'm excited to see where some of these teams go with the picks that they made.
Yeah, shout out to the lack of trades. Like for the second year in a row, I got double-digit picks right exact in the mock draft. So shout out to the NBA for not going crazy.
Very nice.
Chris, tell the people where they can find your work.
The people can find my work on Sporting News, and they can find me on Twitter at CStoneHoops. I will have a 2019 big board up tomorrow, so everybody can start to think about that and how terrible that draft class is.
Chris, what do you got going on this weekend, tomorrow? Or are you just sitting at home not doing anything, I would hope?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go into my day job, but I don't imagine that I'll have a ton going on over the course of the weekend. I suspect I'll do a lot of sitting around, probably watch the World Cup, and then do a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, this podcast might become just like a World Cup podcast, or maybe it'll become
That's a great idea.
Maybe it'll become an Australian football podcast. Essendon beat West Coast last night. It's a big win. Big win.
Nice.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, World Cup Australian football, lock it in. Just don't do baseball.
No baseball. No baseball up in this house. Yeah, go to The Athletic. Please subscribe. A lot of really great content up. I wrote 7,700 words tonight on all of the first round picks, and I will have a superlatives thing coming up in the morning. You know, best fits, best picks of the first round, best value, worst picks, stuff like that. Other than that, keep it locked here. Keep it locked at The Athletic. We're going to have a lot of really good, fun stuff coming up with free agency coming up. So go over there again. Shout out to the people over at CLNS Media. But until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.